I still remember it so clearly. The first day our names appeared side by side on the campus bulletin board. Not because of academic achievements. Not because of some joint research project. But because of a single photo. A photo of me and Dorian standing just a little too close backstage at the university auditorium. I am Sterling Hawthorne, second-year economics major at a prestigious private university in Boston. My family is the kind the press likes to call old money. Generations of tradition, charity galas, walls covered in portraits inside our sprawling suburban estate. Dorian Brooks was the star of the entire school. He was a music major, the lead vocalist of the most popular student band on campus. Black hair with a slight curl, warm brown skin glowing under the stage lights, eyes that always seemed to be hiding a song not yet sung. And he was the only person who could make me lose my composure whenever he looked at me for longer than a second. Our story began one autumn afternoon when the maple leaves outside Widener Library had turned deep red. I was sitting on the stone steps, AirPods in my ears but no music playing, just pretending to be busy so I could avoid small talk. Dorian walked up. "You're Sterling, right?" he asked. His voice in real life was even deeper and warmer than on stage. I looked up, and for the first time in my life, someone raised to always control my emotions, to speak with the quiet confidence of an heir, stuttered. "Yeah. And you're Dorian." He smiled. "I know who I am." We both laughed at the same time. That day, he sat down beside me, leaving a polite amount of space between us. He talked about tonight's band rehearsal, about how much he hated dry theory classes, about wanting to write a song not to become famous, but so that someone somewhere would listen and feel loved. I don't know why I told him about the pressure from my family, about how my father had already mapped out my entire future. After graduation, I joined the family investment fund and eventually take over. "Have you ever wanted to live differently?" Dorian asked. I watched the leaves falling. "Yes, but I don't know if I'm brave enough." He looked at me for a long time. "Courage isn't the absence of fear," he said. "It's being afraid, and still moving forward anyway." I had no idea what I was stepping into that day. All I knew was that from then on, we started sitting together more often. In the library, at the little cafe near campus, at band rehearsals where I pretended to be the tech assistant just so I could watch him sing. Dorian on stage was someone else entirely. He burned. He didn't just sing, he told stories with his voice. When the spotlight hit his cheekbones, it felt like the entire auditorium was spinning around him. And I was spinning around him too. But a romance between two guys at an elite university isn't always simple. Especially when one of them is me. My family funds part of the university scholarships. They know the board of trustees. My weekend parties are usually attended by the children of politicians and CEOs. I was expected to show up with a beautiful, accomplished girl who was suitable. Dorian, on the other hand, came from a working-class family in Chicago. He was here on a music talent scholarship. He was proud of that. He owed nothing to anyone. We were different in almost every way. Except that when we were together, everything felt real. Our first kiss happened on a rainy night. Rehearsal had run late. The auditorium lights were off, leaving only a faint golden glow in the hallway. I was helping him coil the mic cables. Our hands brushed. Just a light touch. But it felt like electricity racing down my spine. Dorian looked at me. Just looked. "Sterling," he whispered, his voice lower than usual. I didn't think. I stepped forward. The distance disappeared. His lips were warm, soft, and trembling slightly. I could hear my own heartbeat roaring in my ears. I had never kissed anyone like that before. Not out of curiosity. Not out of rebellion. But because I wanted to, because it was him. When we pulled apart, Dorian rested his forehead against mine. "Are you sure?" he asked. I knew he was asking about more than just the kiss. I took a deep breath. "Yeah." And from that moment, we were no longer just two students who happened to meet. We became each other's secret. We dated in hidden corners. We held hands under the table at the cafe. We lay next to each other in his dorm room, listening to music and talking about the future. Dorian would often place his hand on my chest. "Your heart is beating so fast," he teased. "Because of you." He'd laugh, then kiss my collarbone slowly, as if he were memorizing every inch of me. But the world doesn't always let two men love each other in peace. That photo, the one of us standing too close backstage, appeared on the school's confession page at the end of October, with only one caption: "Music star and finance prince. What's going on here?" I read it while sitting in class. The messages started flooding in. Friends, acquaintances, even people I'd never spoken to. Some were curious, some were cruel, some openly hateful. I glanced at Dorian in the row ahead. He was staring at his phone too, his shoulders tensed. For the first time since I'd kissed him, I felt afraid. Not afraid of what people would say about me, but afraid this would hurt him. Because our love, though it had only just begun, had already become the center of attention. And I didn't know if I was ready to pay the price. I never thought a blurry phone photo could change my life so quickly. Within 2 days, it felt like the entire campus knew. No one said anything to my face. They just looked longer than usual, whispered when I walked down the economics hallway. A few people still smiled politely, but their smiles were different now, guarded. For Dorian, it was worse. He was already in the spotlight because of his music. Now the attention had shifted. During Friday night rehearsal, I stood at the back of the auditorium as usual. When Dorian stepped onto the stage, applause erupted, but mixed with a few mocking whistles. "Sing us a love song for your boyfriend." The shout came from the back rows. I saw his back stiffen, just for a second. Then he grabbed the mic and smiled. "If I sing, it's because I want to, not because anyone tells me to." The auditorium fell silent for a moment. Then he began to sing. His voice that night wasn't just warm, it was fierce, as if every note carried a declaration. I stood there, heart aching, proud and hurting at the same time. After the performance, I waited for him backstage. He came down, sweat glistening on his neck, eyes still burning with stage fire. "You okay?" I asked. Dorian looked at me and stayed quiet for a few seconds. "I'm used to being watched," he said softly. "But I'm not used to them using you as the punchline." That sentence made my chest tighten. "I'm not a joke. I know." He stepped closer. "But the world isn't always kind." We didn't touch. In public, every gesture could be photographed, exaggerated, twisted. I hated it. I hated having to think twice before putting my hand on his back. That night, I went back to the apartment my family rented for me near campus. My phone buzzed. My father's name lit up the screen. I knew what was coming. Sterling. His voice was cold and calm as always. "I've received several calls." I closed my eyes. I figured, is the photo real? There was no room to dodge. "Yes." Silence on the other end. I heard him exhale. "You know what this family stands for." I gripped the phone tighter. "I'm not a financial report," I said, my voice shaking but not breaking. "I'm a person. And you think this relationship won't affect your future?" I thought of Dorian, of the way he placed his hand on my chest whenever I was anxious, of our first kiss in that dark hallway. "If that future requires me to pretend to be someone I'm not," I said slowly, "then maybe it's not the future I want." My father didn't yell. He never yelled. He simply said one sentence. "I hope you understand what you're giving up." The call ended. I stood alone in the large, luxurious apartment where everything was perfect and cold. I had never felt so lonely. That night, I went to Dorian's dorm. He opened the door, hair still damp from the shower, wearing a loose gray t-shirt. When he saw me, his eyes softened instantly. "What happened?" I stepped inside, closed the door, and leaned my back against it. "My father knows." Dorian didn't ask for details. He just walked over and pulled me into his arms. This time, I didn't care who might see. I buried my face in his neck, breathing in the scent of his body wash and familiar skin. "I'm scared," I admitted. "Me too," he whispered. We sat on the bed. The small room had indie band posters on the walls and a guitar in the corner. "Do you regret it?" he asked. I looked at him. Loving me. I didn't answer right away. Not because I hesitated, but because I wanted him to hear every word clearly. No, I said. The only thing I regret is not being brave sooner. His eyes softened. He raised his hand to my cheek, thumb gently stroking. Sterling, I don't need you to fight the whole world for me. I'm not doing it for you, I whispered. I'm doing it for us. The space between us closed. This kiss was nothing like the first one. No hesitación. No experimentación. Only certainty. I pulled him closer, feeling his breath blend with mine. His fingers threaded through my hair, holding on as if afraid I might disappear. We fell onto the bed, lips never parting. His hands slid down my back, slow and exploring. I trembled not from fear, but from longing. Sterling! He breathed my name between quickened breaths. I had never let anyone touch me like this. Never trusted anyone enough to drop every shield. That night, we didn't just exchange kisses. We exchanged truth. That we were two boys in love. That it wasn't a joke. That even if the world stared, gossiped, and judged, in this small room, between two bodies finding each other, nothing was wrong. When I lay beside him afterward, head on his chest, listening to his steady heartbeat, I understood one thing. Our love was no longer a secret. It had become the center of everything. And if it was the center, then either we would burn under everyone's gaze, or we would learn to shine in it. The next morning, I woke up before Dorian. Autumn sunlight filtered through the thin curtains, casting a soft golden glow on his skin. He lay facing me, hair slightly messy on his forehead, lips parted as if still dreaming. I propped myself up and watched him for a long time. I had never imagined I could look at another boy and feel this kind of tenderness. Not just desire, something deeper, like I had finally found where I belonged. Dorian stirred, then opened his eyes. He looked at me and gave a lazy smile. You're looking at me like I'm about to disappear. I'm just making sure you're still here. He reached out and pulled me closer, forehead against forehead. Sterling, he said softly. No matter what happens out there, I don't regret this. I swallowed. Me neither. But the world outside wasn't waiting for us to be ready. When we walked onto campus together that afternoon, not holding hands but close enough for everyone to understand, the stares began again. Some people smiled in support. Some turned away. Some looks made me want to shrink. But Dorian didn't lower his head. He walked straight, shoulders back, the same way he stepped onto stage. I suddenly understood. He was used to the spotlight. I wasn't. The rumors spread further than I expected. A student blog posted an article about the controversial relationship between the music star and the sponsor's son. I didn't care what they wrote about me, but when they implied Dorian was using me to get more famous, my blood boiled. That evening, I went to his small acoustic performance at a cafe near campus. The place was cozy, warm, with soft golden lighting. I sat in the front row. Dorian stepped up with his guitar. He looked at no one else, only at me. This song, he said into the mic, is for someone who taught me that courage isn't the absence of fear. I knew he was talking about me, and my heart clenched. He started playing. A new song. I'd never heard it. The lyrics didn't mention two boys loving each other directly, but no one could miss it. It was about two people standing in a crowd, being stared at, being named, but choosing to stand beside each other anyway. Let them talk, he sang, voice husky in the chorus. We were never meant to hide. I felt my eyes burn. After the show, a few people came up to congratulate him. One girl said, I think it's really cool that you're brave enough to be yourself. Dorian smiled and thanked her, but I could still see the faint tension beneath his skin. When it was just the two of us, he let out a long breath. I'm tired, he confessed. I stepped closer. Because of them? No, he looked at me. Because I don't want you to have to carry this pressure. I let out a small laugh. You think I'm that weak? No. But I know your family is different. I fell silent. Family. That night, my mother texted me. Your father is very disappointed. No question. No greeting. Just that. I sat on the sofa in my apartment, phone screen glowing in the dark. Dorian sat beside me. Do you want to pause this? He asked quietly. I turned to him, not believing my ears. What do you mean? I mean, if this costs you everything, I don't want to be the reason. I stood up. You think you're a burden to me? He stood too, voice tighter than usual. I'm not the kind of person who needs saving, Sterling. I've been fighting my whole life. I'm not trying to save you. I shot back. I'm choosing you. The room went silent. We stared at each other, breathing hard. It was the first time since we started that we fought. Not because we didn't love each other, but because we loved each other too much. Dorian looked away. I'm just scared that one day you'll look back and regret it. I walked over, took his hand, and forced him to meet my eyes. If I ever regret this, I said slowly, it will be because I let fear decide for me. His hand trembled slightly in mine. I don't want to lose you, he whispered. Me neither. We held each other. Not rushed. Not hungry like the night before. Just two people standing in the middle of a storm, choosing to hold on to each other. I rested my chin on his shoulder. We can't control how people look at us, I said. But we can decide how we stand. Dorian took a deep breath. Then we stand together. Yeah. A few days later, the university held its annual student gala, where clubs performed, sponsors were introduced, and local media was present. My family would be there. Dorian was invited to perform. I knew this would be the decisive moment. Either we kept hiding, or we stepped into the light. That night, as Dorian adjusted his shirt in front of the mirror in the dressing room, I stood behind him watching. Are you scared? I asked. He smiled, but I saw his hand tighten slightly. Yeah. I stepped forward and placed my hand on his back. No matter what happens tonight, I said, I won't leave your side. He turned around. There was no more hesitation in his eyes. Then let them look. I took his hand. This time not in the dark, but under the bright lights of the auditorium that was waiting. And I knew from this moment on our love would no longer just be the center of rumors. It would become a statement. The auditorium was packed. Spotlights swept across rows of expensive suits, evening gowns, and perfectly made-up faces for a proper night at an elite American university. I spotted my parents sitting near the center. My father in a classic black tuxedo. My mother elegant in a deep green gown. They looked like the picture-perfect family from a business magazine. And their son, was standing backstage, holding the hand of another boy. Dorian squeezed my hand gently. There's still time to back out, he whispered, half joking, half serious. I looked at him. If I back out, I'll lose more than just one evening. He said nothing more. The host introduced the special music department performance. Dorian's name rang out amid applause. He stepped forward. I didn't let go of his hand until the very last second before he walked into the light. The auditorium fell quiet as he stood center stage, guitar strapped across his chest. Tonight, he began, voice calm but deeper than usual. I want to sing a song about not hiding anymore. A few whispers rippled through the crowd. I could feel my father's gaze on me, even though I hadn't looked at him yet. Dorian started playing. This song was stronger than the acoustic version. No more uncertainty. Every line felt like a gentle challenge to invisible prejudices. When he reached the chorus, he paused for a beat. Then he spoke clearly into the mic. I love a boy who is sitting in this auditorium tonight. The entire hall seemed to hold its breath. My heart pounded so hard I thought I might faint. And I'm not ashamed of it. He looked straight at me. No dying. No lowering his head. Just looking. I don't know what made me do it. Maybe anger. Maybe love. Maybe both. But I stepped out from backstage. The sound of my shoes on the wooden stage was soft as I walked toward him. The whispers grew louder. I heard someone gasp. I heard chairs shifting. But I didn't stop. I stood beside Dorian. He placed his hand on my waist. Clearly, publicly. Him, Dorian said into the mic, voice slightly trembling but steady, is the person I love. I looked down at the audience. My father's eyes weren't cold the way I had expected. He looked shocked. My mother placed her hand on his arm. The moment stretched on forever. Then, from somewhere in the back rows, a single pair of hands began clapping. One person, then two, then more. The applause spread, uneven at first, but loud enough to drown out the whispers. I turned to Dorian. He was looking at me like I had just performed a miracle. But I knew. The miracle wasn't me stepping onto the stage. It was him daring to name our love in front of everyone. Dorian bowed in thanks, then continued singing. This time, I stood beside him for the entire song. We didn't kiss. We didn't need dramatic gestures. Just presence. And that alone was enough to shake the room. After the performance, backstage was chaos. Some students ran up to hug Dorian, saying they were proud of him. Others looked at us with complicated eyes. But the footsteps I was waiting for belonged to my father. He appeared at the dressing room door. Everyone automatically stepped aside. "Sterling," he called. I turned. Dorian gave my hand one last gentle squeeze before letting go, giving me space. I walked toward my father. He looked at me, then at Dorian. There was no explosion of anger, only exhaustion. "Are you sure?" he asked. The question was different from last time. No longer a command, just a father. I nodded. Yes. He was silent for a long time. "Love isn't easy," he said slowly, "especially when it goes against what people expect." "I know," he sighed. "I won't promise I'll understand right away, but I don't want to lose my son." My chest tightened. I had never heard him speak like that. "I don't want to lose my family either." We didn't hug, but the distance between us shrank just a little. When he left, Dorian walked over. "You okay?" he asked. I smiled, eyes still wet. "Maybe better than I thought." He touched my cheek gently. "Sterling," he whispered. "You were brave tonight." I shook my head. "We were." He smiled. "Yeah, we were." That night, we didn't go straight back to the dorm. We walked through campus, streetlights casting shadows on the stone path, the cold late autumn wind slipping through our coats. This time, I reached for his hand first. "No hiding." Some people looked. Some smiled. Some whispered. But I no longer felt swallowed by those stares. I felt steady. Dorian stopped under a maple tree and pulled me close. "Do you know what scares me the most?" he asked. "What?" "Not that they hate me." He looked straight into my eyes. "But that one day you'll choose an easier life." I lifted his chin. "Easy has never made me happy." Then I kissed him, right in the middle of campus, under the lights. Not a passionate kiss, but a certain one, a silent promise. Our love had once been a rumor, then the center of everyone's gaze. Now, it was an undeniable truth. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid when the whole world saw me loving a boy. In the days after that night, the atmosphere on campus shifted. Not like in the movies, no confetti, no official statement from the administration. Just a subtle change. People stopped looking at us like we were breaking news. They started seeing us as a couple. Some professors still kept their distance. A few parents sent anonymous complaint emails. But at the same time, I received messages from freshmen saying they felt less alone seeing us together. I had never thought my love could have that kind of impact. One afternoon, I was sitting in corporate finance class, mind-wandering. My phone buzzed. A message from Dorian. "Come to the practice room tonight. I have something I want you to hear first." I smiled. The music department practice room was no longer our secret place. But there were still small corners private enough. When I arrived, he was sitting on a chair, guitar on his lap. "Just you," he said. I sat down in front of him, our knees lightly touching. "New song." He nodded. "Not about being watched anymore." "Then what's it about?" Dorian looked at me for a long time. "About the future." He started playing. The melody was slower, more mature. No longer the impulsiveness of the early days. The lyrics were about two imperfect people who were nothing alike, but learning to stay. Not because everything was easy, but because they chose it. "Do you still choose me?" he sang softly. When the lights are gone, I felt my throat tighten. When he finished, the room was quiet. I don't know what will happen after graduation, he said. Maybe I'll get signed. Maybe not. Maybe you'll go work for your family. Maybe you'll go somewhere else. I listened in silence. But I don't want our love to be just a beautiful, rebellious chapter in our youth. I moved closer and knelt in front of him. It's not rebellion, I said. It's truth. He set the guitar aside. Sterling, if one day I have to choose between my career and staying here, what will you do? The question wasn't easy, but I was different now. I won't hold you back, I said slowly, and I don't want you to hold me back either. He looked at me, eyes both sad and relieved. So what do we do? I placed my hand on his chest. We grow up, together if we can, apart if we have to, but we never deny this. His hand covered mine. I love you, he said, this time not on stage, not in front of a crowd, just between the two of us. I took a deep breath. I love you too. Those 3 words left my lips lighter than I expected, as if they had been waiting for a long time. At the end of the semester, Dorian was invited to perform at a big student music festival in New York. It was an important opportunity. I knew he wanted to go. I also knew it could change everything. The night before he left, we sat on the floor of my apartment, backs against the sofa, cold pizza on the table. Are you scared I'll change? He asked. I hope you change, I answered. He raised an eyebrow. I don't want you to stay the version of yourself at 19 forever. I want to see you grow. He smiled softly. And you? I'll change too. And if we change in different directions? I looked at him. Then at least we were brave once. He crawled closer and wrapped his arm around my shoulder. We didn't say anything else. We just sat there, listening to the cars outside, feeling each other's presence. The next morning, I walked him to the station. As the train approached, he placed his hand on my cheek. No matter what happens in New York, he said, I'm still the boy who stood on that stage and called your name. I smiled. And I'm still the one who stepped into the light for you. The train arrived. He stepped on. Before the doors closed, he rested his forehead against mine. Through the small distance between our bodies, close enough for me to feel his warmth one last time before he left. No kiss. Just a light touch, but it held an entire promise. As the train pulled away, I stood there for a long time. I didn't know what our future would look like. I didn't know if a college romance could survive ambitions, different cities, new opportunities. But I knew one thing. Our love was no longer something to hide. It was no longer a rumor or gossip. It had once been the center of attention. And because of that, it had forced us to look straight at ourselves. I turned and walked out of the station, cold wind blowing through my coat. My phone buzzed. A message from Dorian, sent right after the train left the platform. Whether the world is watching or not, I still choose you. I smiled and typed back. Me too. And for the first time, I understood that love doesn't need an audience. But if the whole world is watching, we will no longer bow our heads.